answers to get bonus points. That's sometimes a choking point for a few people. They turn it in early, but it doesn't meet the requirements and they want the extra credit. You must be able to execute on the school's computers, and I might add on our grader's computer, which is going to execute anything that would execute on the school's computers. Okay. Any questions about, yes, sir?
So under the submission guidelines you're just reading, the zip file is supposed to be named Project 0 and YYY, but in the actual instructions it tells us to name it like we named our labs.
Let's
_01, our initials.
Let's go see.
10.
Let's see what it says. This is allegedly Project 1. Okay. What do you do? This is known as a requirements conflict. You know, I know you better than that. Come on, which of the two would you pick?
The first one.
No, this one. This one is the one you would pick. Because the guy that's grading your thing is going to have this paper in front of him and he's going to go through and see whether you did the things it says. By the way, this problem is something that's a real problem in computer science. The thing that really messes up a program is when it works on data which is partially updated. See here, the project is updated, but the instructions back on the website are not updated. If it was a program handling this instead of a human being, this would be a real problem. Okay. So let's look at what we're supposed to do. Well, let's look at the picture first. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the grader's going to care whether it says Form 1 up here? He should. I can't guarantee he'll grade it right, but that should be a penalty if you didn't bother to rename it. Okay. So what we're doing is we're creating a form. It has a menu strip. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 text boxes and 4 labels. You've done something close to this. What was it? Lab 5, right. You remember I told you all you had to do was just do 2 more text boxes and 2 more labels? That's pretty much it. Okay, to find out how the thing is supposed to work, you could click on this and run an example. Okay, tells you what to submit. Okay, first you test it to make sure your program works. And then you put it into that zip file that was mentioned. Okay. Now, this is suggesting you don't have to have exactly the same look and feel that this one has. And that means if you think there's something that's more intuitive, et cetera, you can do it. But my experience is that half the people that do that actually come up with something which is worse. For example, they'll change colors. We haven't learned how to do it, but people who really want to do this will look it up. They'll change colors and they'll pick combinations of colors where the text has almost 0 contrast compared to the background. And it becomes a difficult to use user interface. Okay, so now we're going to do this thing. Okay, what are we supposed to do?
So initially, start a new file.
No, I mean, what's the program supposed to do? This is the key of what the program is doing. You type in the cost of a meal, and it gives you the tip 3 times. Anybody been to a restaurant lately that when you get your bill, it has exactly that information on the bottom, except they don't say poor service, average service, excellent service. They'll say like 10, 15, 20%, whatever. But they will give you suggested tips. Okay. Now, here he says something that makes you think that you don't have to use text boxes. I have given you what I consider a very strong reason that you should use text boxes. Anybody can figure that out from the rambling that I did? What are you going to be tested on?
Whether the tip amount goes into the box.
No, I meant on your exam.
Tested on the projects and the labs.
You're going to be, well, it specifically said you're going to be tested on menu strips, text box, forms, and labels. So if there's any things you should be familiar with, it's menu strips, labels, text boxes, and forms. Okay. Okay. So I find it easier to have a copy so I don't have to keep, if we need to refer to this, if anybody needs to refer to it, that's fine. But I'm going to become dizzy if I have to keep looking up there to know what I'm supposed to do down here. Okay, a gentleman, based on the timbre of the voice, I didn't see who said it, but it sounded like it was a gentleman, said that the first thing we had to do was a new project. Sounds like a good thing. Now, let's see what it tells us about that. Does it tell us what we need to name it? Menu strip. I don't see anywhere in here where it tells you what to name your zip file, but I don't see anywhere where it tells you what to name the project. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. Now, there's something I haven't done, which our student who's hiding over there would have done first. She would have created a folder to put this in, and that's what you should do, because if you don't, and you're running Windows in a virtual machine, it gets ugly. Because it wants you to have administrative authority, and it doesn't give you a way to be an administrator. At least this one doesn't. Okay, so I want to create a folder. So I go to Documents. I go to, and you see I did this in my previous section already. So we'll have to call it something slightly different here. Okay. Oh, let me show you. I can demonstrate what you see, I clicked on my folder that I had named Project 1. And I get this thing, Tip Calculator, which is my project folder. Well, how can I prove to myself that it's my project folder? I open it, and I have another folder which has exactly the same name, and I have my solution file. Don't copy those. Copy the project file. So you would just copy this and put it into your zip file. Now there's one student actually the instructions are the same in all my programming classes, and this is in 1400, but there's one student in the other programming class that doesn't like to do it this way for some reason, so he always zips it after the fact instead of doing it the way that our author tells us to do it. And the problem with that is he zipped his project folder rather than having his project folder in the zip file, and that was a deduction. You might say silly deduction, but if you're required to do it, you're required to do it. Okay, so we got to find the file that I'm supposed to use. And we said, I just created it, it's right there. So I select that folder. Now, we can name this project anything we want to name it that makes sense. If it's something that's vulgar, violates the style guide and saying that, like, here you're supposed to be doing a tip calculator and you named it My Sailboat Around the World, the grader would probably take off. Remember, he's a student. Okay, so I'm going to call it tip calculator. But that name is not required. The only name that's specified for you guys is the name of the zip file on this one. So I've selected my Windows Form application. I've selected Visual C. You see Visual Basics lurking up there. I hope the Visual Basic person isn't in this class. That is a no-no. You got to click, you got to do Visual C#. Okay. Sometimes I go out of my way not to know who makes certain mistakes. I don't want to embarrass them, because loose lips sink ships. Okay. So we know that there's something we got to do on the form, and that is we're supposed to change its text property. Now, why are we making a big deal about replacing the text property?
Because it's a real world application. You're not going to have something that's just going to be named Form 1. It has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, the users expect something up there that makes sense. You know, like right there it says Windows 7. Here it says the name of my project, Microsoft Visual Studio Express, blah, blah, blah. It says something meaningful. That's why it's a big deal. Okay, next step. Where do I have to go? I have to go to, right, and I can get to the toolbox by going to View and selecting Toolbox. Now I'm going to do the menu strip. Which category I'm putting some people to sleep?
Yeah, it's in menus and toolbar.
You know, the thing that is obvious, that seems obvious, often causes people trouble. Okay, we're only going to have one thing on our menu. Let's look at this Windows 7 menu up here. We have File, we have Edit, blah, blah, blah. You see how you can do that. You can put something here, then you would be able to put something up there on that level. But we only have one top level item, and that was Exit.
And do we do About on this one?
Yeah, it tells you to do the whole, yeah, you always need the About box. Okay, so we've done the Exit. Now, the next thing now we know we have two boxes under the Exit. We have Exit and About. Okay, one of the best students in here accidentally clicked on, you know, it tells you, click on the second exit, don't click on the top exit. But one of the best students accidentally clicked on the top box, double clicked. So what would happen That would create a place to put code, right?
Yeah.
What do the directions tell you to do if you make that boo-boo?
Start over.
No, it says do nothing. You don't delete it. Because if you delete it, you have to change the application object. And what are we told in this class? We don't program the application objects. Visual Studio does it for us. You know, they used to say to err is human, but to really mess things up, you need a computer. Okay. Now, we know where to find, so far we've only used two of these guys. We've only used common controls and menus and toolbars. So we want 4 labels and 4 text boxes, right?
You can just do one label on a text box and then copy and paste all of that.
Yep, you could do that. And is there anything wrong with doing that? Absolutely not. So why am I doing it this way? Just to emphasize that you just drag them over. Now, I'm not lining them up yet. I'm just putting them there. So we got to find text.
Go up.
I went too far. I went out of
Right
my,
there, go down.
went out of my category. Okay, now, this is not a very good place where I put my text boxes. The reason is, when I start putting the things that go in the labels, they're going to overlap over these. So I need to pull these over to the side. Okay, the way I like to do something like this, and you don't, you know, when something's a preference, I try to let you know that rather than something, whether it be important or not. This is not important, but the way I like to do it, I like to put the text property in the labels so I know what these are supposed to be rather than depending on my memory or looking at something. Because one of the things we're supposed to do is give our text boxes names so it's easier for us to remember how to refer to them. Okay, so we don't have to use these exact words because it said your user interface has an exit and an about menu item. Your interface is intuitive and easy to use. It doesn't tell you that your interface is exactly like the picture. But I'm trying to make mine exactly like the picture. Okay, so label 1. Well, I got to go back and click on it again. I want to change the text property in label 1. And I want it to say meal amount : all I'm doing is copying exactly his interface. So I'll line it up. I might have to move it right or left to have all my labels lined up. Second box was poor service. Next one was average service. Now we see I don't have them lined up well. We won't want that one there. Okay, so we'll do this one, and this was excellent service, which is the longest one. Oh. So now we line up everything based on excellent service. You see the lines that come up when you move these? That lets you line them up with other things that are on there. So okay, the way I read this, you are not required to rename these text boxes because it doesn't, at least I can't see where it says it. But the whole reason we had you do that in Lab 5 was not to make the world hard for you, but to make it easier. So you're better off with a name that you can remember or at least find. Okay, so we want to change the name. And if anybody sees me about to change the name of something other than what I'm trying to change the name of, please don't let me type that in. Okay, so what's a good name for this? Yeah. Do we want to do text box first or meal? How about meal? We had a debate. Is there a right or wrong? No. There are styles, and let's see which. I don't remember which one our author uses. Okay, so we got meal text box. Then we're going to have a pour text box. Why am I capitalizing the T and the B?
Because they're in the middle. New
Yep.
words. You should lowercase f.
Yep, thank you.
Consistent.
I appreciate you telling me before I push enter. Okay. Oh. Okay, now let's take care of our menu strip. Well, let's do the header, the prologue first. I double-clicked on the form to get the form software to come up. Okay, this is in Lab 6. Lab 5, rather. This is Project 1. This is in sections 5 and 6. This is section 5. This is in the 6th. This is the 11th. Let's get rid of this. my description doesn't work, which oh. Recommended tips. Okay.
Question.
Yep.
Is there a reason he uses double slashes for every line instead of a slash and an asterisk? Is that in the
I have no idea why. In fact, in my Java class, this would be a style violation because our style says that if you have more than 2 lines, you need to do it with a multi-line. But it just could be the author's experience. This is, yeah. Our style guide doesn't address that.
Okay.
I don't think. I don't remember it.
No, I don't think so.
I don't remember that it does. I was just
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you'd say that for many people, the preferred style would be the multi-line comment. But I only use I've never used C# professionally. I've only used it academically. I've never had the good or bad fortune of working for Microsoft. So, okay. So we don't double-click the top guy, we double-click the next one. Okay, what code goes in here?
this dot code.
Now, you notice I didn't capitalize it. Why did it come out right? It didn't come out completely. Here we go. Is that right? Is it a method or is it? Yeah, I think I think it failed me. Yeah. Visual Studios did not give me the whole thing. Shame on Visual Studios. Okay, now we need our method comment up there where method prologue. And if anybody ever gets this one wrong, it's because of laziness. Why? Yeah, he told you exactly what goes in there. You know, a lot of us try to make things harder for ourselves. Okay, the about box. Okay, we want a message box. Now, being intelligently lazy, I cut and paste. But it didn't cut or paste. Actually, I copy and paste. Okay, now, if we'd looked at his message box, his was quite a bit different. But you can, as long as it has your name in it, let's say, you know, that's good enough, I think, because again, it wasn't specified, but it has to be reasonable. The whole purpose of a mouth box is to tell you about the program. Okay, so now we could copy the prologue for the exit menu strip item and edit it. Or since we have done an about box before, we could just copy the one off of it. Okay. Now, fairly or unfairly, fairly or unfairly, he's depending on us to remember what we have to do. So let's talk about what we want to happen. What do we want to happen? We want to be able to type a number in here, and then when we push the tab key, have the results show up in those other three boxes. That's what we want to happen. How do we make that happen?
The property of event.
Right. So we need to click on the lightning bolt instead of a property. After, you've noticed I've already highlighted the box, and it's already over here working on our meal text box. So we click on the lightning bolt, and then we find the word leave. And we double click on it. Why do we double click?
So it creates the method.
Writes the code.
It didn't seem to be doing it for me. Didn't seem to create the event. So I better go back, and for some reason it didn't like my click. Okay, so we'll go back and we'll find leave again, and we'll try to get it to like my click. For some reason, it loved it that time. Now, what do we want in here?
You
Okay,
declare a variable.
there's a video that in here called Math or something like that for this week, which goes in and shows it in somewhat exquisite detail, what you need to do. Or, we've already done this.
Yeah,
Where did we do it?
project 5.
We did it on Project 5. Now, I'm just going to copy that text into here, and it's not going to be right.
What's more, the questions, if you wrote the code for that it asks for one of the questions, it helps you with this particular segment of it.
We want a double, we don't want an int. And that name isn't any good either. We'll change our variable name. You know, there's nothing wrong with meal amount. Do you have to name it? No. What the requirement on you is to use meaningful names, not X, Y, Z, A, B, C, things like that. And the name of our text box is wrong. The text box is meal text box. Well, and the red line went away, so that tells us that the system knows that that name really exists. Now, we need to avoid magic numbers, so what do we have to do? We have to go way up to the top and in our class,
So I didn't do that on my lab 5. Is it ideal to get?
where did you put them?
I put it just above the method.
You can't put them, that's fine. They should be, at C#, the preferred style is you do things like that early. Now, there's two places basically that you could justify putting them. One is either in the method, or two is in the class. So if you put them in the method, it would be right at the beginning of the method. If you put them in the class, it's right at the beginning of the class. So we need some constants, and they're private. Are they private? They could be public. There's no reason for them not to be public. And they're doubles. and I'm going to call them poor. And what is the percentage for poor?
1.
Yeah, it's 10% or 0.1. When I did it for the other class, I did 0.1. Okay, public const double average. And what was the average percentage?
1.5.
Now, one thing I don't do in these class examples that you should do is I don't put the comments in my main method. Instead, we talk about it. When you are writing yours, you should tell what you're doing. That doesn't mean you have a comment for every line of code. If you're adding 1 to a number, please don't write a comment, add 1 to a number.
So would you put a comment then just above the public const double and then,
No, I wouldn't even put a comment in for these.
no? Okay.
I mean, you could. The comment, yes, the best thing to do would be a comment at the top that says tip percentages. That would be perfect. See, I told you I was lazy. Formerly I said intelligently lazy. Now we'll have to change that, just lazy. Do I have to have that 0 to start with? No, you just need the decimal point. Okay, we do like to have white space at that point. Okay, now we come down here. We got our meal amount. So what do we want to What do we want to do? As soon as we leave there, as soon as we leave here, we'd like these 3 numbers to fill in.
So it needs to take the variable that is entered in and multiply it and add it, multiply it by the percentages up top and add it to itself, and then return in each one of the text boxes.
No, it's only asking for the tip. It's not the total. You're only calculating.
Oh.
And how do you know that? You run the sample program. Sir?
So, yeah, it's similar to that, just get whatever's entered in the mill amount.
Yeah, which we just did. We took care of this.
That's the hardest one.
Yeah,
You times it by the constant and then put the appropriate answer in there.
right. Well, we had to convert it to a string once we have the answer. So let's copy these 2 lines that are also from Lab 5. And you can't use them exactly like they are. Okay, we need to create a string. So why don't we have a poor string, an average string, and an excellent string? And we don't want to convert that. And we don't want C. We want, what do we want?
F.
No, I said, guys, you should listen to me. We don't want D. We want C. Trials and tribulations of trying to get you guys to answer. I answer. Okay. So we got meal amount. And we have a space, and then we have an asterisk for multiply. And we multiply this times our poor. Oh. Oh. And then we aren't putting it in our, it's poor text box. Oh. Why are there no parentheses after text?
It's just a property.
It's hallelujah. That might be worth 5 points on some point on the first exam. There's a difference between a property and a method. This is a property. So but it depends on whether you see the question and recognize it. Let me give you another secret. A lot of times you have the answers to later questions in your former questions. You know, you might have a multiple choice that you pick that's the answer to a short answer question later on. Okay, so we just need two more of these guys, right? The next one is average. What would happen if I didn't change the name over here? This thing would come all messed up, and then you would have to figure out what was wrong and fix it. No big deal, actually, but we'll try to get it right the first time. Yep. Okay, we need I think we only have one method without a prologue. Aha, I double-clicked something. Okay, you leave it alone. Okay, so we need a prologue. So we'll copy. Why do we always copy one of these? Because we're doing it for an event handler. And you always need to say basically the same things for an event handler. Okay, that's not the name, right? Oh, we must have copied in at the wrong place. We eliminated our, okay. The name is meal text box leave. What's the purpose of this? Calculate and display. Again, and the last two are unchanged. Now we have the acid test of whether you guys did a good job or not. Remember, your job was to find any mistakes I made before I pushed enter. I distinctly remember saying that at the beginning of the class. Okay. Faster than a speeding bullet. Let's pick a meal price that we can tell by inspection that the tips are correct. You were going to do $1, I was going to do 10. Yeah, and then if I pushed return, nothing would happen. But if I push tab, we get the answers, and you see they're right.
Now you check your menu strip and everything.
Okay. Now, I don't want somebody to send me email 1 a.m. Sunday morning. Monday, 1 a.m. Monday morning, saying, I don't have the slightest idea what I was supposed to do for Project 1. When is the time to ask a question?
Ow.
Yes?
So you said that you can put the constants within the method. It doesn't have to be at the top of the document.
It,
It's just the start of the
it
method.
depends. In this case, you could put them in the method. It's preferred to put them in the class, but it's only one method that uses them. Now, why wouldn't you do that? What if later you were going to change this?
If you put the constants in a method, they become private, right? So that a different method won't be able to use those constants.
That's true.
So
They
is that-
disappear. They disappear when it's stopped. That's what I said. Preferred is to put them in the class.
Do you do that for variables too, or?
No, it's preferred to put variables in the method so that they disappear. Now, there's a special kind of variable that we put in the class, and it's called a field. It's actually the same thing, and that's what you give your private or your public. And our style guide says all fields are private. You remember that? All methods are public, all fields are private.
I don't remember that. I read it.
Yeah, it actually said that in the style guide. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
What if we don't declare the constant?
What if you don't what?
Declare the constant.
Then you lose points for having magic numbers. Yes, sir?
So you convert it, that once the calculation's been done, you convert it back into a text string because you're using the text property? Is that-
No, because the only way you can display something in a text box is to have it be a string.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
What if we accidentally create the event handler before we rename it?
Then
Rename it, or?
just go with it.
Okay.
There's no requirement on you to rename them in this lab, but it's bad. It's good practice to get into the habit of doing it right.
I answered my own question before I asked it.
Would you ask the question and then answer it?
Sure.
Okay, please, somebody else might have the question.
So in the instructions, it says to make a intuitive user interface, I think it said.
Yep.
So I was gonna ask, can I create a button instead of using the leave method? But in the instructions, it says to use the leave method, so the grader would probably grade docking points.
Yeah, you wouldn't use the leave method. Now let's say, which is more intuitive, the button or the leave?
Button.
The button.
Button, yeah. You come back 10 years later and you wonder why it doesn't calculate the tips. Because you never pushed tab.
This is, I don't know. I suppose it's maybe not necessarily more out of curiosity, but I know it's a good idea. I know it's good that we are creating the variables for the strings, but technically it would still function even if you didn't, right? You could technically assign the formula to the text property itself.
Okay, it depends on whether the question, okay, he's not asking the question that you think he's asking. The question he's really asking is, will the toString method be called automatically? And I don't know. It has to be a string. So he wasn't asking that question. I was giving you more credit than you deserved. Forgive me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, don't worry about that question. Just do it the way.
So the leave command
that's a different, you can do things, that's another event. Or it'll either be enter or get focus, be one of the two. Different, too many different things. Okay, we are done. Now, what I'm really asking you guys to do, it's a matter of pride for my sections to do better than the other sections, so don't let me down. Both of us would like, by the way, they never tell us, but we know. So, the